We're doing something a little different in this episode of the Streamlabs Desktop tutorial course. I am going to talk about Streamlabs Desktop versus OBS Studio. Now, full disclosure, as always, this course is sponsored by Streamlabs for me to be making this course in the first place. But I'm going to be real with y'all, because I've not been quiet before about how I felt about Streamlabs Desktop in the past, and it's come a long way. And there's some myths that I think kind of need quashed at this point. So which should you use? Streamlabs Desktop or OBS Studio? If you want to know how to use Streamlabs Desktop, tons of videos in the playlist in the description down below. I also obviously have OBS Studio tutorials in the description down below. So I wanted to add a bit into this video and use this opportunity to test the new GoPro I might be using for cooking videos to address some of the conversations that have been had on the first couple of videos from the Streamlabs stuff, because a lot of you all are understandably a little confused why I'd be supporting Streamlabs when I've historically I had some not nice things to say around pandemic time. And I do want to say that the company is a very different company today than they were a few years ago. They got acquired by Logitech right before the pandemic. And following that, after a little bit, some of the butting heads with the OBS developers kind of came to a head. And following that, there was a lot of restructuring. There's almost a completely new team representing Streamlabs at this point, and a lot of new people at Logitech. And so I've gone from having a rocky relationship with both Logitech, who acquired Streamlabs, and Streamlabs themselves, to being on good terms. The OBS developers, which was the most important element to me before I covered Streamlabs again, nevertheless engaged in a partnership with them. The OBS developers are also on good terms with the Streamlabs team today. That is kind of all I needed. But if you want more information regarding that, they've completely renamed what was Streamlabs OBS to Streamlabs Desktop, which I'm covering now, which helps reduce any of the brand confusion. They've made efforts to eliminate the need for the possible feeling of lock-in with regards to Streamlabs, because they now have a plugin for OBS Studio itself. So if you want to use Streamlabs stuff or start with Streamlabs Desktop, and maybe you get into more advanced configurations and you want to move to OBS Studio, if that's an option to you, which we'll talk about more in the video, you are now able to do that because of the Streamlabs plugin for OBS Studio. You no longer need to worry about feeling locked in or that you'll lose anything, which is a huge deal. The Streamlabs plugin for OBS is a great middle ground that gets you your alerts, your overlays, your widgets inside of OBS. It basically launches like a sidecar kind of Streamlabs window that pairs with your OBS, and then you can get chat docs, event list docs, things like that. To get you most of the experience, you can multi-stream with it, things like that. And then you can upgrade to Streamlabs Desktop if you want all of the extra features. Along the way, Logitech was actually OBS's first diamond tier sponsor. OBS has an open collective. It's kind of like a Patreon, but for super big budgets and for big open source projects, to where other companies or highly invested individuals could donate significant sums of money. Logitech, which again acquired Streamlabs, so Streamlabs is included in that, was the first diamond tier supporter for OBS Studio, which means they were contributing a minimum of $50,000 per year towards OBS's development. They have now since been bumped up to a premier tier, which is a step above diamond tier, which means that Logitech and Streamlabs are significantly contributing to all of the great changes we've seen in the OBS team over the past couple of years, where they've been able to go full time with a lot more developers. They've had a lot faster updates and all of that, because they are significantly contributing to the financial side of developing OBS itself. So if you've been on the fence, or if you've seen the previous things, I'm hoping they'll let me add this into the video to just say that things are a lot better now, and I wouldn't have engaged in a partnership with anyone that I felt was actively harming the streaming scene. As the guy who's been teaching OBS for 13 years now, I have always been quick to be very vocal and critical about companies that I think are doing wrong by the streaming scene, wrong by the OBS developers, and so on, and that included Streamlabs at one point. But I did my thorough vetting. I spoke with the OBS developers at length a little bit to make sure that they were okay with the team, and they said, not just behind the scenes, because originally I was just like, all right, off the record, what's the deal? And they said, even just publicly, like, they are on good terms with Streamlabs at this point. And that's what I need to move forward. So I'm hoping, again, I'm not here to sell you on anything. A lot of this video will actually give you reasons where you may want to use OBS instead. Just as a brief overview, like, to me, having used it The new Streamlabs Desktop makes it really hard to like, as a new streamer who just wants to get home from work, hop on a live stream, play some games with some friends, and then go about their day. It's hard to see a reason not to use Streamlabs Desktop for that, because it's so easy to get set up and so convenient to utilize everything. But if you're someone who wants to use the more modularity of OBS Studio, if you want to do more advanced scripted custom plugins and UI engagement and custom controllers and all that stuff, or if you're a bigger team or something like that, OBS Studio might be more right for you. But we'll get to the rest of the video and you can hear that from me a few days ago. Again, thank you for holding me accountable. Thank you for hopefully listening to those of you who were kind of confused at first by my posting of these videos, and let's just keep making the streaming seem better. We're going to focus on, I guess, 3 main reasons why you would use one over the other. So first and foremost is the initial setup walkthrough kind of flow, in terms of you are a new streamer that just wants to jump in and go live and have a good looking stream, but you don't want to you don't want managing your stream to be your hobby, which many streamers often fall into. I'm saying this paid or not, take what you will. I know how messy this is, but like, I will say that Streamlabs Desktop is the way to go for that, for a few reasons. First and foremost is all of the built-in features that are easily accessible on at your fingertips. This whole sidebar, which typically when I'm using it, I keep hidden. For the tutorials, I keep it up. The sidebar, you get access to customizing your alerts and widgets, to adding functionality from the App Store, to adding a lot of these alerts, and then this whole layout editor for your actual docs, which every time I talk about docs with OBS Studio or show like an abnormal configuration for my OBS, people freak out. They get scared about how it works. You've got all that there. You've got the marketplace for stream layouts and alerts layouts and all of that stuff. You've got extra apps that you can get, like the Magic 8-Ball, the random clip player. You've got a highlighter tool. You can manage your recordings right here in Streamlabs Desktop, including a video editor tool built right in. All of the overall flow, even if we look at adding sources, and again, I've covered all of this in the prior episodes, even if we're just looking at adding sources, a lot of this feels more accessible, more user-friendly here in Streamlabs Desktop. Now, to get the most out of it with all of the overlays and the fancy graphics that are provided for you, you will want a Streamlabs Ultra subscription. That's a subscription. It's not like in OBS, you still get those and you don't have to pay for it. OBS doesn't come with any graphics. You have to import them all yourself. And there are companies that make graphics that make it super easy for you to get like one-click installs and stuff like that if you pay for the individual graphics. But it's not as seamless as just having it built in. Like, I've demonstrated this a million times in this course. But if I want a scene collection, I can just click on it and choose select and install, and it's going to build me the stream. And then I can choose between them here. And I've shown off many of these before. You just swap in your sources. And then I've talked about the multi-streaming stuff, which is the easiest flow to multi-stream, to managing which stream goes where, whether you want vertical or not with dual output. Easiest flow ever is in Streamlabs. But I will say that is for the beginner to intermediate streamer. The streamer that wants to get up and running, like I said, does not want streaming management, stream building to be their hobby. They have limited time. They want to come home after work, hook up in their game with their friends, and stream it. They don't want to do all of the meta stuff, to follow my videos and build custom effects and that's fine. This should be your home. I feel confident in saying that these days. This program has come a very long way and should be your home. But I will say, if you're wanting to do more advanced and more custom things for yourself, OBS Studio is probably the way to go. If you're wanting to get your own plugins developed, if you're wanting to get your own effects built in, your own super niche custom graphics layouts and things like that, all of that you want to learn OBS for, because that will set you up on, I guess, the best possible path forward for that, because a lot of that isn't supported in Streamlabs. And this is especially important for certain events where they have bespoke modifications to OBS and things like that. At this point, there is so much built into Streamlabs Desktop, including the charity tool, which I just checked out in the previous video, that can manage for teams and for events and things like that. That difference is shrinking all the time. But if you're really into custom coded effects and overlays and plugins and Lua scripts and whatever, that is when you want to start looking at
OBS Studio. I will also say, if you want to use OBS as a super easy screen recorder kind of thing, which is what I often do, that's arguably not the best. Like, OBS itself is arguably not the best tool for that job in the first place, because it's not just a screen recorder. It doesn't just take your capture card or your screen source or whatever and dump it to disk. It is still a scene compositor and renderer and everything else, and a mixer, all of that. But if that is what you're doing, you will have the lightest weight flow in OBS for that purpose. Speaking of lightweight, one of the biggest myths I see pushed about Streamlabs versus OBS these days comes down to resource usage. And this was a little bit different back in the day, but at this point, people who say that Streamlabs Desktop has significantly more resource usage than OBS Studio, they've not really kept up with the times. And I understand the perspective, because Streamlabs Desktop has all of this fancy UI on top of it. They've got all these extra features. But realistically, at the end of the day, especially for mid to high range gaming computers that are doing like serious live streaming, the effort on your computer side to just have like a fancier UI is very minimal compared to the effort of actually encoding, compositing, rendering, and encoding your streams and videos. That is all done on the graphics card. That is a lot of work, and that is where most of the resource usage lies. But I'm going to show you a little trick here. I'm going to pull up Task Manager. I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing this, but we're going to take a look at Streamlabs Desktop here. Now, granted, I'm not recording in it. I guess I could do that real quick. Sure. Let's start recording. We're now recording in Streamlabs Desktop. We're using about 5% CPU usage and about 1,200 megs of RAM, 1.2 gigabytes of RAM. That seems like a lot. And if we look at the instance of OBS I'm actually using to record this tutorial right now, we're only using 1% of CPU usage and only 232.6 megs of RAM. You might look at that and be like, whoa, that is a substantial difference in memory usage. What the heck is going on there? Well, the difference is the instance of OBS I'm using to record only has one source. Like I said, just a screen recorder, has no plugins actively doing anything, and just a desktop scene. There's not a whole lot of RAM required to do this. But if we look at another instance of OBS that I can pull up, which is my typical Twitch streaming layout with all of my crazy advanced sources, you can see here I've got my super advanced just chatting scene and all of that. That instance of OBS is this one. We're not even recording or streaming. It is using 6% of my CPU and nearly 15 gigabytes of RAM. That's not streaming. That's not recording like these other two, the Streamlabs Desktop and the other OBS. That is just to sit there and to play these sources, render the effects, composite the scene. That's not to say somehow OBS is worse at the job, just that I have a lot loaded up in there. And with that comes more resource usage. Most of the resource usage you will face when live streaming is decoding your sources if you have big complex video layouts or plugins or whatever, compositing and rendering your scene, which means stacking all of the elements together, flattening them into a video frame, and then encoding that video frame and broadcasting it out to your stream destination or your recording. That is where the real work happens. That is where the resources will be used. So to me, that myth is busted. I've been watching a lot of Mythbusters lately. That myth is busted. So then really the conversation comes down to the right tool for the job, for what you are doing with it. Again, if I just want a super casual, lazy screen recording setup, I'm going to pull up OBS Studio in a portable instance where I don't have anything else going for a couple reasons. One, because it is a little bit lighter weight to just have a screen capture source and a recording go, and it's faster to just quickly change those settings, but also because it's an isolated space away from my stream stuff. If I'm streaming in Streamlabs, I don't want to open up Streamlabs, change my resolution, my frame rate, my record settings, change my scene collection, all of that to record a tutorial, and then when I go to stream, forget to change something back. It's because I want a dedicated, isolated from everything else I'm doing thing, not because Streamlabs is worse at it. Streamlabs has all the same recording features that OBS does, and arguably more. It is purely because of that. So it comes down to the right tool for the right job. There are some people I know that do the most advanced, crazy plugins you've ever seen that are exclusive kind of in a way to their specific configuration and the tools that they have available, the code that they've produced or hired someone to produce. And OBS, being the modular, open nature, deconstructed kind of nature that it is the best for that, because it's designed to be kind of picked and prodded and optimized and whatever. If you don't want to think about the math, the numbers, the nerdiness, you just want it to look cool and stream, I think in 2025, Streamlabs Desktop is probably the way to go. And I know, again, this course has been sponsored by Streamlabs, so y'all are going to do whatever in the comments. I'm not going to argue. I'm just here to say, there's a lot of nuance that gets left in these conversations that ultimately just comes down to right tool for the right job. That has been kind of my tech mantra this year in my videos, in the stuff I want to talk about, in the way that I use tech, is finding the right tool for the job and sticking with that. And I hope this has informed your decision about which tool you kind of get invested in and really start using here as you begin your streaming journey. And you can bounce back and forth between either of them. It's going to be a little difficult to kind of migrate things from one to the other, but you can, and that's fine. Find what feels comfiest to you. I will say, there's a lot of neat features, especially if you want to do the charity streams. That whole campaign manager in the last episode was amazing, but also not everybody needs all that. Remember to be kind, rewind. Full tutorial course playlist in the description down below. We got more stuff to cover for getting the most out of it and things like that coming soon. Remember to be kind, rewind.